Well, good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning. My name is Joel, and I serve on the staff here at Panama Baptist Church. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for making us a priority, making us part of your day. If you are sending your tithes and offerings here to Panama Baptist Church, remember you can do that one of three ways. You can go to panamabaptist.org and click on the Give section and give through the website. You can download the tithe.ly app and give through a mobile device, or you can also just mail them directly here to the church office. Pastor Andy's been praying for our schools and leading us in prayer for our school districts over the last few weeks, and we've got one more coming up again today. But we are excited to be partnering with our schools in a couple of different ways. Let me tell you about one opportunity that we're excited about right now. As kids go back to school, of course, with that comes buying school supplies. And if you are in need of school supplies and you need some help purchasing them, we would love to be able to help you in that way. And so if you could use some help purchasing school supplies, please let us know. Send us a note, office@panamabaptist.org, or you can send us a message through Facebook, and we would love to be able to help you in that way. And so please let us know if we could do that. As mentioned last week, Pastor Andy is going to be giving us a coffee talk here in a few minutes in an interview-style format, talking about some of the things God has been doing over the last several months, and looking into the future just a little bit. If, with what he's talking about, if you have questions that maybe don't get asked, but you've got some questions or some follow-ups, we would love to be able to answer those. So please send those questions. Again, office@panamabaptist.org, and maybe other people have the same question as you, and we can answer those in a broader format. But we would love to be able to answer any questions that you have, so feel free to send those to office@panamabaptist.org. All right, if you haven't already, be sure to say hello in the chat box if you're watching this at 9 o'clock. We'd love to know that you're here. And as Pastor Andy has been encouraging you the last couple of weeks, don't hesitate to interact with what you're hearing throughout the whole service today, even during the coffee talk portion. It's okay to chat and to talk during that part. And when it's all done, let us know something that intrigued you, something that you heard that was interesting to you. We'd love to be able to interact with you in that way. All right, let's turn it over to James and the crew for some music.
Your love is devoted, like a ring of solid gold, like a vow that is tested, like a covenant of old. Your love is enduring through the winter rain and beyond the horizon, with mercy for today. Faithful you have been, and faithful you will be. You pledge yourself to me, and it's why I sing. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Why I sing. Your praise will sing your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips.
When I fear my faith will fail, Christ will hold me fast. When the tempter would prevail, He will hold me fast. I could never keep my hold through life's fearful path, for my love is often cold. He must hold me fast. He will hold me fast. He will hold me fast. For my Savior loves me so. He will hold me fast. Those He saves are His delight. Christ will hold me fast. Precious in His holy sight, He will hold me fast. He'll not let my soul be lost. His promises shall last. Bought by Him at such a cost, He will hold me fast. He will hold me fast. He will hold me fast. For my Savior loves me so. He will hold me fast. For my life He bled and died. Christ will hold me fast. Justice has been satisfied. He will hold me fast. Raised with Him in endless life, He will hold me fast. Till our faith is turned to sight, when He comes at last. He will hold me fast. He will hold me fast. For my Savior loves me so. He will hold me fast. He will hold me fast. He will hold me fast. For my Savior loves me so. He will hold me fast. For my Savior loves me so. He will hold me fast.
I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hand. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God.
So this week we're continuing our prayers for local public schools, and this week we want to really focus on praying for staff. I'm thinking about, food service workers. Their lives are going to change. The requirements for them are going to change with meeting the current restrictions and protecting everybody. Bus drivers, facility staff, cleaning staff, school nurses, counseling staff. There's a likelihood of more students who just in need of some encouragement, some help. And of course, special needs staff, occupational therapists, speech therapists, all those folks. So as we think about all those people who work behind the scenes often to make the school experience what it is for students, we want to pray for them. Here's the list for this week. We want to pray that God will help them to adjust to the new requirements that they have for them. We want to pray that God will protect them from getting sick and certainly from spreading sickness and those kinds of things from one student or faculty member to others. We want to pray that God will use them to help students adjust to the new requirements. And then lastly, as we've been praying every week, we're asking God that he will draw people to himself, but not just save individuals, but that God will draw whole households to himself. So let's take 20, 30 seconds right where you're at and pray for those things. All right, let's do that. Amen. I have no question whatsoever in my mind that God is responding to these prayers you're praying. Thank you so much. Let's keep on praying.
Well, hello. We're here today with our promised coffee talk. Mara, my wife's with me, and she's been willing to even brave her nervousness to jump in and just dialogue with us, ask me the questions that I need to get asked, because sometimes I would just keep talking, and this way hopefully it'll help this go a little bit more smoothly and more focused.
And the two of us talk about these things at home all the time, so it's kind of a, for us it's a normal. He starts talking to me, and I'm like, well, what about this?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So what should we talk about?
Hey, I was thinking, since we promised people we would talk about vision and where we think God is heading our church, what next steps our church is going to be taking, that we should start with that. In order to start with that, we kind of need to talk a little bit about COVID. When you and I first arrived at Panama, the plan was to get to know people, and we just about started putting names and faces together, and all of a sudden we were all in isolation and we didn't see anybody, and that was kind of exciting. But through that, even though we didn't see COVID coming, God obviously did, and he had a plan for changing our online service into something that was better than what we had had.
Right. Yeah. Because COVID has been a huge disruption for businesses. It's been a huge disruption for churches. It's changed the way that we do things. It hasn't changed our mission whatsoever. Our mission still is about helping lay people live it out, live out their faith at home, at work, with their friends, and with lost people. That's still our mission. Our mission is still about how do we reach our own kids for Jesus Christ and the gospel. Our mission is still about being a church that is communicating well and attractive to people who would be open to our message but aren't looking for a church. So none of that changed, but our strategy and how we accomplish that got thrown out the window in a lot of ways, and God kind of forced our hand, but that was a good thing, and we actually we did some things right, or some things very well. Some of it was intentional, some of it I think was accidental, but in all of it, God, I really believe, has led us to do some things really well during the COVID thing, especially with our online or our digital ministry.
So, some of these changes that happened online were very intentional. Some of them were, a happy accident. But lately, you have been talking with our church leadership about what you all think is the next step for online.
Yeah.
And is it going to change? Is it going to stay the same? What are we going to
Yeah.
do with that? And so,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, there are a couple big things. We are I guess at this point we're adjusting to what worked well and what didn't work well. What we saw during that, we saw that we were able to get a lot of people who are willing to watch the service online.
Okay.
We also learned through all this that there is a big difference, and I wouldn't have known this prior to COVID. There's a big difference between an online service, watching a service online, and having a digital experience. With an online service, you just watch it and you can pause it and whatever. But with
Right.
an online experience, you're actually maybe interacting with other people, or you're interacting with the teaching content. And at the end of it, you really feel like you participated in something, and maybe you participated with other people.
Okay, so
And-
you've got more of a community rather than I'm just viewing something.
Yeah, the community is there, but also you're interacting with the dialogue. I think the difference is, we could use these words. It's the difference between consuming content and engaging. You're
right,
engaging
okay.
with the content, and so one of the big things we're working on now is like, so how do we continue to make it so that people can watch anonymously, which we want that to happen.
Okay.
We want that to be possible, but then how do we help people take steps of engagement? And we know at the end of the day, people really want to be in community.
Okay.
So how do we help somebody move from, watching a service online to then watching it with other people, maybe at like the 9:00 gathering thing, to finding a way where they can actually get to know some of those other people who are watching at the same time or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Like I got to meet Sherry
Yeah.
at the BYOP.
Exactly.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So how do we facilitate that and help people get to community? Because at the end of the day, we want them to know Christ, and but we also want them to know other believers and to live in community, because that's what God designs for us.
Okay. Okay.
So that's one of the big things that we're recognizing. We need to take steps. We have to change and adapt, or tweak at least, our digital side of ministry in order to help people make those steps.
All right.
The other really huge thing that happened was the culture shifted on us, and
So it did.
we these were things that were happening before COVID, but COVID accelerated. And so, like, I can give you just a couple of examples. People are used to getting everything delivered now more than ever before.
Right.
And so that includes content, information. And so they want it on demand. They expect it on demand. And so what do we do with that? I think if we ignore that shift in the culture, we'll just make it that much harder to reach people. And so
Okay.
we don't want to do that. I think another huge way in which the culture shifted over the recent years is, if you think back, say, 5 to 10 years, if somebody wanted to know what our church was like, they had to come.
Right.
And a lot of them didn't come, but that's what
Because
you
it was
had-
intimidating.
It was intimidating.
Or a bad day.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that online has helped us with. But they didn't come. And then a few years ago, it kind of shifted. And if they want to know more about us, your website was so important. They go to your website and they can find out what your beliefs are, and maybe who your staff are, and what time all the services are going to be, and what programs you run. They
Okay,
get a feel
right,
for what kind
right.
of church you might be before they come. Now, that shifted even more, where people, they're going to check you out completely online first. They're going to come and they're going to want to see a whole service, maybe several services. They might check you out online for several months before they say, hey, you know what? I think this is a group that I could maybe click with and
Okay.
grow with
So
and
like
stuff.
we were safe, we're relevant.
Yeah, we're safe, we're relevant, we're helpful,
Okay,
and all that kind of
okay.
stuff. And so, that's changed. And so we want to get better at being that for people so they can check all that out online.
Okay.
Because that is the expectation, and we're glad that we can do that.
All right. So you just said we want to get better at this.
Yeah.
So recently, you and Pastor Joel have both been doing an awful lot to make this whole online
Yeah.
service work, especially the 9:00 one. You're hosting. You're
Right.
putting all the video together. You're putting it all up. Are you thinking that that's going to stay that way, or are you guys hoping to see some changes?
Yes, yes. We're hoping for some changes.
Okay.
You know, that's another beautiful thing. A lot of ministries that maybe people were volunteering in aren't running right now.
Ah, so true.
But God has opened up brand new ministry opportunities, which are so awesome. For example, right now, Pastor Joel and I serve as online hosts. And we love doing that, for the 9:00 service I'm talking about. But we could let other people who have gifting in just being friendly, welcoming people do that.
Okay.
And that we actually have some training for how to be an online host. We're getting ready to roll out a new segment where people can click on a thing and say, I would like somebody to pray with me. And when they do that, it opens up a chat box. It's not
Oh, wow.
auditory, but they go to a separate chat and they can share what it is they want prayer for. And then somebody can actually pray, in the chat box back with them. And again, we've got that all ready to roll. We've got training for what do you say, or what scriptures might go well with a certain kind of prayer request. I would love to have lay people who are able and willing, or willing to man that part of it and to bless other people that way. Pastor Joel and I spend a lot of time in video editing, and the cool thing is we have, by us doing so much of this on the front end, thanks everybody, you let us make the mistakes and learn, so now we can, give you some good ideas on how to do that. But we would love to get people who would be willing to say, hey, I don't know for sure about how to do all that video editing thing, but I'd be willing to come watch you and learn from you and maybe learn how to do that. Pastor Joel has actually scripted out every step it takes. It's a few pages, but every step it takes to put together our online services and our digital experience, to getting it up on the web page, to editing and all
Wow.
of that.
So you don't have to be a tech expert. You
don't
just have to be able to learn.
You have to have a few skills, but be willing to learn the rest.
Okay.
We spent a bit of time moving equipment around, and so.
I saw that this morning.
Yeah, you got to see that for the first time. This has been really
up close and
eye-opening.
personal.
So one of the things we are actually talking about doing now is building a recording studio here that's got 3 different. Each wall is a different background. So instead of hauling everything all the different places, you turn the camera 90 degrees, and all the mic stuff is there, all the lighting equipment is
Wow.
there and stuff. So people
So if
who
you're
could,
an interior designer, this one's for you.
Yeah, just guys, turn yourself in and go. All right, you got me. I'm here. And please understand, when you do that, you are not signing up to do. You're signing up to get more information and
Okay.
to have a dialogue. We this is not.
So somebody could
That's
come,
not
try
good.
it out, see if it
Yeah,
works for them.
yeah,
and
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And so working on, this may surprise people, but one of the most time-consuming parts, besides, actually delivering this content, one of the most time-consuming parts of our services is putting the lyrics on over the songs.
Okay.
And we have that stuff, but if somebody is willing to, like, hey, I think I could learn to do that piece of it, because we do it in pieces. One person edits. We're set up now where one person edits the sermon, somebody else is editing the music, somebody else is editing, and then all the pieces
Okay.
come together,
All right.
and then somebody else is putting all the pieces together, and then uploading it all. We have to upload it twice and all that. So you can learn a piece.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just one other quick question, like if I was volunteering, I would kind of want to know, and that is, let's say I decide to be an online host. Does that mean that, I'm signing up to be an online host every week for the next year, or is this is this like a
Yeah.
how does that work?
Yeah, unlike the old days where you when you volunteered, you were there until the rapture or death.
Yeah, or
whichever came
yeah.
first or second. I'm not sure. No, it doesn't have to be that way. You can work that. We can work that out. And then that's another thing too. With so much of the really pivotal ministry being online, you could do that from Florida.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. You can host from Florida.
Hypothetically, if we had people who ever go to Florida, I just got to
or
throw
somewhere
that out.
else, or
Yeah. Right. So, but that is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You can participate in ministry even now when you're not at the building.
All right. So you mentioned that we're working. One of the next steps for this online ministry is that we're hoping to help people connect with a community.
Yeah.
What are some of the ways we're hoping to do that? Have we worked that out yet, or is that still being in the thinking, planning stages?
Yeah. The answer is yes to both of those. We have worked out a few things, like, if we had a little bit of help and time, we would start adding things like at the end of the YouTube video, we would have a video, just a short segment that says, "Hey, I hope you really enjoyed watching this. Even better if you can do this with other people and interact with them and catch even more." And that would encourage people to take the step to go to the 9:00 online simulated live service there.
Wow.
And we're looking at those kinds of short, easy steps
Okay.
that we can add at every step along the way to help people all the way from, okay, I saw you on YouTube the first time, to checking out a small group or coming to one social gathering, or if you wanted to come to the in-person
Okay.
service.
So we're trying to put into place a whole bunch of quote unquote baby steps.
Baby
to
steps.
help people
Yeah.
move people closer and closer into a community.
Yeah, yeah.
Or wanting a community.
Because at the end of the day, that's where everybody wants to go, and God wants them to go to. They want to be in community, but they want to check it out.
So I'm
safely
assuming
first.
that eventually we're hoping that they would decide to come to in-person services. So
Right.
what would make them want to come to an in-person service rather than
Yeah.
online if we already have a great community there?
Exactly, because online is convenient and all
Absolutely,
that.
yeah.
So here's the deal. I think people crave those connections, perhaps more than ever. Maybe COVID just showed us the difference between those who have those connections and those who don't, and the pain levels that go with that. Moving forward, I believe that one of the big cultural shifts is that, in the past, people, because of how they had to check your church out, if they came, they actually kind of wanted to be anonymous for a little bit.
Oh, right. Okay.
Welcomed, but give me space. But I think moving forward, we're going to see that far less. I think you'll see more often that if somebody goes to the trouble of actually showing up at your building, okay, they've registered, they put on the mask, they've driven their car, they got their kids in, they had the fight on the way to church. They did all those things that seem to go with it. If they show up, it means they're not there just to check you out. They're actually there because they want to experience connection. They want to experience body life.
Okay.
Hear from other people, get to know other people. They want that opportunity to sing with other people, or they want body life.
Mm-hmm.
They
And
want to serve other
face-to-face stuff.
face to face,
Mhm.
and I think
Okay.
more and more people are no longer going to be content to just show up and get information, but if they actually go to all the trouble of coming to the gathering with other people, come to the church building, they want to actually have an encounter with God Himself. Yeah.
So we're looking then at kind of making some changes to this online ministry, but you and the leadership are also then talking with God and working with each other to figure out how to make our in-person service better for the here and now
Yes.
and going forward.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so wow.
Yes.
Okay, so we have new and exciting things to look forward to. Not
Yeah.
that you're gonna throw the service out or
no,
anything.
nothing scary. But we're constantly asking those questions. Like how do we make this more beneficial?
Oh right.
How
Okay.
how do we make this so that it really truly helps lay people live out their faith and do it well this coming week? So
Okay.
we're asking those questions, and then what would be helpful, and we're getting feedback from people too as we work on that.
So if I show up, it's truly worthwhile, and it's not
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
well, I just got exactly what I would have gotten online, and online is a
Right.
whole lot
Right.
faster.
Yeah,
and
right.
easier.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Ideally, online gives you this incredible taste. It will meet the need if necessary, but it gives you an incredible taste of what we're like and what we're about, and what God is, and how His Word applies to us. It gives you that, and in a satisfying way, and yet at the same time stirs that craving for even more, because I really believe people want more because God wants more for them, and so yeah. So how do we do that?
So I'm just kind of thinking here, but Pastor Joel last week in his message was talking to us about being welcoming, right? So if somebody has decided to make that huge step from I'm coming from the online to the in service, then obviously this idea of being welcoming is actually really important for those of us who are here at the in-person service.
Yeah, and it applies to both services.
Oh, right.
Because,
Okay.
right, while we have online hosts, I think it says a lot. If somebody's moves from the YouTube to the 9 o'clock, and they're not known, but they're greeted, but not pride. No one's prying stuff out of them in
Okay.
a creepy way, but they're greeted and
Or recognized as returning.
yeah,
that
or
kind of
something
thing.
like that.
Okay.
I think that goes a long way at helping them realize that this is a group that seems to genuinely care.
And isn't closed.
And isn't closed.
Okay.
I think if you attend the 9 o'clock service and you're part of our church membership, one of the things that I would love to have go through your head is how I interact with people whose names I don't know here is building trust and communicating and helping them decide whether or not these are people that would be interesting to get to know and maybe helpful to get to know. For those who are at the in-person gathering, let me just turn it around. You've been asking me questions. Let me ask you this one. If you showed up at a church and you were hoping you're not looking for weird, but you're hoping that it's going to be friendly.
Okay.
But more than friendly with each other, because our church is like a family reunion every week, right?
So
Which is
it is.
awesome
We
if you're
love
part of the
it.
family, right?
Yep.
But kind of intimidating if you're not. So welcoming. So if you showed up at our church and you made the leap to get there, and you're actually kind of hoping that you're going to connect with 2 or 3 people, how many weeks grace would you give us? How many weeks would you come and not connect before you go, I'm just not going to do this?
Wow, that is a great question. Well, you and I have a lot of experience going into
Yes.
new churches
Yeah, we
and
did that on
seeing how
furlough.
that works.
Yeah.
And feeling really awkward and out of place when you don't exactly know where to go, or you don't know anyone and you don't have anyone to talk to, so you just kind of sit there by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I had to do that, maybe 2 weeks. I think
Okay.
I'd give it 2 weeks and say maybe the
Yeah.
first week is a fluke,
Fluke,
and
okay.
they thought I knew somebody even
Right.
though I didn't, or
Right.
but yeah, I think after the second week I would be like, okay, I guess maybe this is a closed community.
Yeah. And those of you who are watching this at the 9 o'clock, go ahead in the chat box, just put in your number. How many weeks would you do that? But assuming you're normal, Mara, and you're like, all right, 2 weeks.
Oh, we're assuming I'm normal.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
great.
assuming you're normal. And you can probably quote me on that, but at an appropriate time, right? But assuming you're normal, and it is 2 weeks.
Uh-huh.
Think of what that means for those of us who are part of the family here. When somebody comes in they're probably not looking to be anonymous. They're probably looking for connection to make, again, like I said, not in a weird way. So you don't swarm them.
Yeah,
but
we're not mosquitoes.
but we've got about 2 weeks
Okay.
to make at least those first couple realistic connections. And you and I have talked about how do you do that, because a lot of us are introverts.
Yeah.
Some people know that for years here, I had a Sunday morning ritual where I talked myself into, you will greet the visitors, because it's intimidating.
Yep.
But we've talked a bit about strategies. One of the strategies is, to remind myself that it's more awkward for them than it is for me.
Right.
But to try to actually go up and greet everybody and to try to find out a little something from them, again, not in a scary, creepy kind of way, but, find out a little bit, either what they do for fun or where they work
live
or where they live or
Mhm.
whatever. And then, and I don't know if I should tell everybody my secret, but I guess I'm going to, because it does help. Then if they tell me like that they love something or they have some passion or some interest
Okay.
or whatever, and I can think of anybody in our church who has that,
Mm-hmm.
then I just take and introduce the two
Let them take it from there.
and
'cause
hope
they've
that
got
they've got
something
something in
to talk.
common,
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And you
They can
had
chat.
you had an experience with that.
I
recently,
did.
too.
I got to meet Vince from online, and he and I happened to pop into the in-person service on
Yeah.
the same week, and he loves motorcycles. And so
So?
does Pastor Joel. And
Right.
so he had come to show Pastor Joel his motorcycle, and I was able to say, "Oh, I'm sure Pastor Joel would love to see you," and take him right in. And it was really nice to meet you in person.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be a great example
great.
of
How we can
how
do
how
that.
that works.
You're right.
Or somebody's really into
Hmm.
crafts. Carrie Claypool is a great
Right.
person to take them to, and I'm sure all of you know various things that other people are interested in, their hobbies, and
Yeah.
or teachers, or you're both mail carriers, or
Right.
whatever
Or
works.
whatever.
We all love dogs.
Yeah. 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 So, yeah. So there's some thoughts. We want to get. We said make it better. It was part of where we're headed. We want to get better at being not just friendly, but a very welcoming church in a way that makes sense and helps people
that
take
is
those next
awesome.
steps.
All right. So I'm not necessarily coming up with anything else. Is there anything else you're really hoping that everybody knows and walks away with about what's going on with our church?
Yeah. I guess there are a few things that come to my mind. One is, I don't want us to forget, God led us. I really believe that. We talked about how God has used COVID and how what an incredible thing it has been, and how it's removed so many barriers. And so people who normally would have been pretty reluctant to attend church because they didn't know what to wear, and they didn't know if they'd know anybody, and they didn't know, do I have to stay the whole service if it's boring as ever, and they didn't know about this, what's the whole take my money, they want my money thing,
Right.
and all that. And God has
Are they going to
removed.
sign me up for weird
Yeah,
things?
and stuff. And God has removed
mail.
all of that, all those barriers
Right.
by allowing us to be online. And so I really believe God has led us, but God doesn't lead us to a point and go, ha, there you are.
True.
He leads us on the next step, but there's almost always, that's not the destination. There's a step after that.
Right,
And so
right.
we've really tried to, as a leadership team, try to be really faithful and recognizing that and saying, all right, where does God seem to be leading us in light of the steps he's had us take so far? And so we're looking at taking the next step, which, is further upgrading our digital side.
Okay.
We're also looking at taking the next step at saying, yeah, just like we're so thrilled that somebody can attend our service anonymously and just get a feel for where we're at. We're thrilled with that, but we want more for them than that. And so we're trying to help them, make the next steps pretty obvious what they would be and easy
Okay.
and pain. Well, we want to do that for people who started on, maybe they're on our in-person side. There's not a ton of difference between the person who watches YouTube and the person who comes to our in-person, sits, and maybe doesn't interact much with the content or with the people, and comes and then leaves, and we're glad they're there, right? We're super
Right,
glad they're
right,
there.
Absolutely, but they're not connected.
But we want more for them. We want them to
Right,
engage
right.
with the information. We want them to be meaningfully connected. We want them to be serving with other people,
Mm-hmm.
because there's just so much about using your gifts for the body. So we're kind of like walking down both lines and saying, all right, God used this to get us to think about that. What's next? And how do we do that in a way that is really helpful to people, is makes sense, like I said, that kind of thing. So that would be one thing I'd want everyone to know and remember.
So, just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
you and I, we keep talking about this connected or community. Those two words, we keep throwing them out, and I know that they are big words that you've been talking about with leadership. What exactly do we mean by that? I guess might be something someone's asking, and
Yeah.
also, what are you going to do with that? I mean, do I have to become part of your community? Do
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
What-
Yeah. So, yeah, I think you asked me a couple questions there. What do I mean by meaningfully connected? I would say meaningfully connected means this: you know a few people, and you are known by them, and you're known by them well enough that they can tell when you need encouragement and what kinds of things would be most helpful in encouraging you. They're people that you could go to, and though it might be slightly awkward or you might be slightly nervous, you'd be willing to tell them, hey, this is something I really need prayer for right now. This is something I need help with right now. People who could hold you accountable if you ask them, not accountable like the parole officer type, but
Okay.
but I'm your biggest cheerleader. And so you say, hey, listen, I really need to have a tough conversation with somebody this week. I want you to ask me on Thursday, did I do it or not? That's what I mean by meaningfully connected.
Okay, so this isn't an intrusive thing. It's actually we want you to feel like you're a part of we know you're
Yes,
known,
known.
and you're
Yes.
known. You're known.
Yeah. We may not be a church, even though we want to be friendly and welcoming. We may not be a church where you know everyone. But
Right.
that does not mean for a second that we don't want to be a church where everyone is truly known by at least a small group.
A small group,
Yeah.
which is why Pastor Joel keeps working really hard on those small groups.
Yep. Yep.
And I'm sure we've got announcements coming soon as to if you're
Right.
not already part of one, where you could join one if that's a great next step for you.
Yeah. So you asked me what I would love for everybody to know. That's one of them. Yeah, I really believe God's leading us to help people figure out how to help it make people take steps on the digital side and on the in-person side. I think another thing I want everybody to recognize is that while we've made some changes and we'll have to make some more changes in how we do ministry, let's never forget the mission hasn't changed. The mission hasn't changed. We're still here for the same people. We're still here to serve the same God for the same reasons. The strategy has to change. We're doing more than ever in kind of a decentralized aircraft carrier kind of way, because that makes sense in the current situation
Right.
and the culture we're in. So strategy changes because
Part of
people
the make
have
it better,
changed.
right?
Yeah. And a third thing I would love for everybody to hear is, and I think we've already said it, but I'll say it again, is, as you're hearing some of this, if you got ideas or your passion, you find your passion kind of getting stirred, like, hey, well, I could do that, or that's kind of cool. Please know, I really believe my contribution to this, my gift, is to help us ask good questions maybe that we wouldn't ask otherwise. You mentioned the park at one point. It was kind of like that when we did the park. God laid something on my heart, and I got to help get the ball rolling. But I had absolutely no business being down there painting. Right?
This is true.
Because
My husband is not an artist.
no, I can draw flies and draw blood, and right.
Yeah, you did. You kind of like broke your finger
Yeah,
with a sledgehammer
that's
while you
true.
were
It's
taking
st-
down walls
it's
for that
still
project.
crooked, but but so one of the things God's really impressed on me is, Andy, you don't have the answers, and you know you know the questions we probably ought to be asking as a church, and you can help set up some of the parameters and the guidelines and guardrails. But I don't even know all the stuff we should do, let alone how to do it all, especially on the digital side. But that if I will cast that out there and I will keep praying, God will give us the people who do have the ideas.
Or the experience.
Experience.
Right.
Oh,
Okay.
and who either have the know-how or are willing to learn,
Okay.
learn
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah, I'm completely banking on the fact that this is going to create the next wave of volunteerism as people are like, yeah, you know what, I want to be part of that. Which leads to the last thing that I was thinking a lot of that
Okay.
I want everybody to know is this. You know, we're not at the destination. We're not even at the new normal.
Okay.
I was talking with somebody recently who said that
Hang on.
the next normal.
Yeah,
The
we're
new
the
normal
next
is
normal.
the new normal may be like what we do for 3 years or whatever, 5
Okay.
years or whatever. The next normal is this is the next 3 months, maybe 6 months. You know, as we look and we're like, okay, this is what we think the next normal is like, and the step that God's asking us to take. What I want to holler out and even plead with people to is go on this adventure with us. You know, certainly, please don't. I don't know how to say this. You know, please don't be super negative. You know, the naysayer type. There's a difference between saying, "Hey, have you really thought about this?" and being like, "Well, that'll never work," and why can't? You know, there's a difference between those
Questions
two.
are welcome.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, as long as they're questions,
Right,
right?
right.
You know, you can ask a question and not be a
That's-
question.
that's
It's
a
actually
statement.
a statement.
Right, true that.
but I would love for us to do this together. If we really believe God's leading and God's got this, and this is God's church and it's His mission and it's His adventure, then I would love for us to go on this adventure together. And so that's my big cry. Let's do this. Let's do this and let's do it together.
That sounds absolutely awesome. Sign me up.
Awesome. Oh yeah, and there's one more thing I actually am supposed to say.
Ooh,
And
the
it wasn't.
supposed to
Yes,
say.
this is a good thing. You got to ask some questions today.
I
And
did.
you've asked me a lot of other questions when we were at home. So you've
This
got to
is
ask me
true.
questions. Probably some of the people listening have questions too. And so if you want to get a hold of us or send them in, the office at PanamaBaptist.org, Pastor Joel and I are prepared to do another kind of series of those frequently asked questions. And so I probably have stirred up a few question marks in your mind today. So send those questions, and we'd be delighted to answer your questions too, without you having to sit in the chair.
Office at PanamaBaptist.org.
All right. Hey, thanks so much for being with us. I hope this has been helpful. I hope it's been encouraging. And like you said, let's do this.
It was nice to meet you all.
All right. Thanks.